Hello and welcome to a series of very special Dublin International Film Festival podcasts. This year's festival runs from the 22nd of February to the 2nd of March and promises to be an elevated cinema experience. I'm chatting with 4 filmmakers whose short films are featuring in the programme. We're going to talk about Postpartum by Tania Notaro, Worry World by Jessica Patterson, The Building and Burning of a Refugee Camp by Dennis Harvey, and Pediment by Derek Ugochukwu. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
You're more than welcome.
There's delighted. Oh my God, there's just such a beautiful mix of films. So I'm just going to go around. I'm going to call you out and then ask you to introduce yourself and the logline of your film as well, just to give a little bit of context. So I'm going to start with Derek.
Hi, my name is Derek, writer-director of Pediment. Pediment is a short film about a precocious boy, Timmy, who embarks on a day's journey to reconnect with an estranged relative, unaware of the disputes between both sides of his family.
It's really beautiful. There's such gorgeous young talent in it. There's a beautiful arc. I'm going to go back and kind of dig into everybody's films and talk first about story. So I'm going to just go through y'all first to get a context of who's in the room. And Jess.
Hey, I'm Jess Patterson. I'm a director from Dublin of the film Worry World. Worry World is an animated short centered around the idea of connection in a disconnected world. Our logline is the price you would pay for connection, and it's like a dystopian kind of animated short about 2 people finding each other.
Beautiful, and such a unique visual style, and very heartfelt as well underneath it. I really got tones of Elemental in moments of it. That kind of that the way the romance was very much so part of the texture of the world, which was gorgeous to watch. So fabulous. Dennis.
Hi, I'm Dennis Harvey. I'm the director of the short documentary called The Building and Burning of a Refugee Camp. It's a short documentary, and the title is fairly self-explanatory. The film follows 3 men who've sought asylum in Ireland, and they find themselves on the streets caught between a hostile asylum policy and an increasingly militant far right.
God, and talk about capturing the mood in a microcosm. It's deeply powerful and unfortunately more relevant than ever at this point in time, which it's a brilliant watch, but it's a difficult one, really, when you can kind of, you feel the tension throughout it. But thank you.
Yeah, it's a documentary horror, I think.
Oh God, yeah.
Which is a weird way to say it. But...
So tense. And Tania.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tania Notaro. I am the writer, director, actor, and co-producer of Postpartum. Postpartum is like a psychological short film that explores the struggles of women who experience postpartum depression psychosis. It explores the detrimental and unrealistic expectations which are set upon women, especially when it comes to motherhood, and how, due to stigma, and many women, when struggling, are afraid to ask for help. It also subverts social media falsehoods into something visceral and terrifying. Yeah.
And again, that's something like visceral is definitely the word that you're watching this as someone who's sort of, gone through that mood, that chemical drop. It's something there's no comparison to it. Even like, when they kind of lovingly term even the baby blues, and it's something that's so physical that happens in your body, and this goes to the extreme. It's really and it's really beautifully done as well, like that the layers of trauma there as well.
Yeah. It was a tough one. I don't have kids myself, but I made a decision. I don't want any. I don't have any urge to have any children. But and it's the questions that I get asked, and how people's response to me kind of explaining why I don't, is kind of I've been told that, you're not a real woman. You don't know what you're missing out on. And I just know loads of people that have children that just did not have any good experiences. And I think there's so many women that the pressure put on them to be the perfect mother and to be motherly and to be maternal is huge. And it's not necessary, or it's not truth for a lot of women.
Oh God, and totally agree. I'm a parent. That was 100% my choice. I think like this policing of women's bodies is like such a ridiculous hangover of where we have come from. Is just there, and it's there in the unconscious. Like, we might not be necessarily religious there, but like that, like ownership over you. Like, why should you be a vessel if you don't want to be? Like, why should you even be asked? Like, men do not get asked that question all the time.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But it's something that I just need to get off my chest. Yeah. And I want to do it in a kind of a Lynchian art housey way. Eraserhead is one of my favorite films, and I kind of wanted to kind of do a female modern version of that.
Yeah. And a lovely performance to boot. Like, we're going to go into how you wore so many hats. Oh my God. on that.
PTSD.
So we'll go into that. Yeah. It's as bad, if not worse, than childbirth. Some of those roles and by themselves, let alone tagged on with all the rest. So, okay. So we'll stick with you, Tania, and talk to me about, you've explained where the kind of concept or the theme was born from, but how did it become like the practical reality of this script?
Yeah, and actually the idea kind of came from a Louis Theroux documentary, and I just found the subject heroin, and then I became interested in the psychology of women being caught up in this psychosis, and as I researched the subject more, I realized that these strange occurrences and apparitions weren't isolated episodes, and many women's testimonies all had similar experiences. Their lives truly became a psychological horror playing out in their heads. And if you think some of the stuff in the film is over the top, it's done compared to some of the testimonies I read. So I kind of, these women really believed that they wanted to kill their babies, believing they were saving them. And it kind of begged the question for me is, how do you ask for help when you want to kill your child? So I kind of got sucked down a rabbit hole in that and thought that was kind of a really good thematic question to explore on a topic that I was that was niggling, that I wanted to work on, that was niggling in the back of my head,
And when did you, was it something that arrived fully formed in terms of how you wanted it to play out? Or
no.
Was it something you developed?
No, not even slightly. Like, still when we were on set, we had so little budget for this, and we had to do it in 2 days. And I was still kind of changing and chopping and rewriting when I was on set. It was just an incredibly manic 2 days. I don't know how I got through it, but I had just a great team around me, and huge support. My DP is amazing, Colin Whelan. He actually won best cinematography there at the Richard Harris Film Festival for it. He was just so supportive, and he was like so stern and so strict on what we could and couldn't do, because I had all these ideas, and he's like, that's not practical. And he always made sure I had my director head when I needed my director head on. And then Johnny Elliott, who's the co-producer, and he's one of the actors in it.
And he was in Glitterbug as well.
Yeah, Johnny's in Glitterbug as well. Yeah, he's just a phenomenal actor, great artist, and he's an absolute hard ass when it comes to me. So he's had to, grab me and kind of make sure I was where I got into character, and I knew where the character was, and he was kind of watching me and helping me there as well. So it was just completely having support around me. Just good support, people that I trust. My sister as well was on hair and costume and makeup, and she, was dressing me. I think that my first AD seen my bare ass numerous occasions because we were in such a rush, stripping off costumes. The amount of costume change we had in such a short period of time, I think I traumatized a lot of people on that set.
Well, you got through it. Oh my God. Because that's a lot of pages to get through in 2 days, especially something so visually striking and emotionally intense, and like how everything plays out, that kind of like layers of texture, like
Mhm.
that's actually amazing. Talk to me about the scheme. This was that
Yeah, this was it was the first year of it. I think they're going to do again. I'm not actually sure, but it was Sharp Shorts from in association with Virgin Media, and they it was just meant to be like kind of 1 minute things and
yeah,
concept
because
ideas.
when I saw that, I was like, was that Discovers? And I was like, I don't remember seeing it on Discovers. And
No.
then I was like, oh, Sharp Shore. Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah. Talk about
Yeah,
putting, what is it, writing a check for like a slice of cake and getting like a three-tiered monster of
that's what
talent
I
and
know.
intensity. Like that's fabulous.
That's just me. Like, give me an inch, I'll take a mile. But it's Daniel and Sinead in Virgin were so good with me and so patient. And I just thought, look, let's just run with it. Let's just go with it. And I did, and I'm happy I did. It turned into something that I just wasn't. Just a small idea just turned into something that I wasn't expecting to be this that big. You
That's
know.
amazing. That's actually fabulous. And I think also there's something to be said about the backing of a broadcaster as well.
Yeah.
Like you're connecting almost immediately to audience, when I think if it's just a funder, you're very much so, like you have to find your audience, you have to find
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
thing. So like, I mean, that in a way people will watch this if they screen it on
Yeah, it
video.
was insane because we were worried about like we had to put up, warnings and stuff like that, which is fine. But it went up on Virgin on the player and stuff, and the amount of people that contacted me after it that said that like I'm so happy there's something out there that it made me feel that I wasn't alone in that experience. Like so many women got in touch with me, and they're like the lack of sleep, the feeling less of a person and a mother because the baby's not latching onto the breast, and just yeah, this the the mind games that you play with yourself due to lack of sleep, due to the baby crying, due to all this. So many people reached out, and it just struck a chord with so many people. Like I just was not expecting anybody because I was like, this is, it's a bit much. I get people after screenings come up to me and be like, get given out to her now and then. But I think that's just a visceral reaction people have to it, that's what I made it for.
And I think if people are challenged by it in a way,
Yeah,
it's doing its job. Like it starts a
yeah,
conversation,
exactly.
it gets something out there in a way like that.
And I
That's
made
quite
it to
amazing.
be that. Like I made it to be to yeah, challenge. I'm always trying to challenge women's role in society through film, and I think it did that. I think made people ask a lot of questions about certain things, and
And people go, is that the case? But I do like, that chemical drop off. I think this is the most extreme version, but like so many women have, just intrusive thoughts, just a very intense baby blues and they're all like physical things that happen to you
yeah,
or like diagnosed. And it's funny, but I think because for so long women's issues and like the fact that like it was like everyone's like, "Oh, did everyone know the menopause was a thing?" Like only a few years ago. It's like, yeah.
I think
All they
women
thought was
ourselves
there.
have like intrusive thoughts without being
Yeah.
pregnant or having children, and it's just amplified then um postpartum. Yeah.
But fabulous, fabulous work. So, okay. So, Derek, this is very exciting. You've been super duper busy and this is your focus short.
Yeah,
Um, so it's absolutely gorgeous. I saw Robert Higgins he's from Lakelands, the producer from
yeah,
Lakeland. Yeah. And the
yeah.
director. So he was your producer on this as well.
He
So,
was my producer in it. Yeah, Hub Media Films, and his partner Paddy McGivney was also part of it. It was amazing working with them. Yeah, we shot for 3 days, and it was kind of like that thing where you feel like, oh yeah, you've been given this budget, so you're gonna do all these things, and the money just goes like that, and you're like,
oh
oh my God,
God, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, we cast we got so lucky with our cast. Like Lucien Coesta played Timmy. At the time he was turning 11, so he played
Yeah.
10-year-old. Nancy Onu played his mom, and then the magnificent Mary Mullen played the grandma Eleanor. And yeah, So yeah, it was just the story we wanted to do, like to just, for me, it was kind of like it all began with kind of like identity and trying to find your roots and trying to, because a lot of people I spoke to, I was watching a documentary that said that titled, Yes, I'm Irish. And it was kind of like a lot of people who were immigrants or biracial that couldn't really pinpoint like where they belong. So at the time, I had this friend who was getting married to a white guy, an Irish guy, and there was a lot of things about her marriage and her, nothing was about love, but more like everyone had this opinion of what she was trying to, things like that. That I felt like, okay, I wanted to write a story that touches on, cultural differences, identity and interracial marriage through the lens of, this 10-year-old protagonist, and also for the second generation in Ireland who are still navigating themselves and what it means to be Irish. So yeah.
It's really beautiful. I really am putting a pin in. I want to talk to you about working with, you always find such amazing new talent and working with them because it's such an emotional story, but I'm not going into that just yet. We're going to talk about the story first. I'm going to go in and talk about the story. So, talk to me about working with focus shorts. Is this something that you, like, is the script you submit with the script that you shot with focus shorts, or do Screen Ireland work on developing it with you a little bit more? And like, did you find it changed yourself as you kind of dug into the idea a little bit more?
Yeah, so that script, we had it similar to Tania. Tania, I loved your film, by the way. I keep telling you this. Like, I mean, when I watched it on Virgin Media, it was like, I had to tweet about it. It was just, I still don't know how you do it, but like, so yeah, it was
back at the
it was part of the Virgin Media's discovery, and so we got shortlisted at the time, and so we developed it with Virgin Media. So I had like a script editor and everything, and then we didn't get through to the final stage, but we had the script, and I had Paddy and I had Rob with me, and we're like, you know what? Why don't we just throw this script into Screen Ireland? So
what else would you be doing? Yeah.
What else?
What else? Yeah.
So at that stage, we already had something that we felt, okay, so it was just more like a little tweaks here and there, to change some parts of the story to make it more of a forgiving, to make it a whole, piece rather than just, so there were aspects of it that changed along the way, through feedback, but I was surprisingly, we didn't have Screen Island like breathe down on us and say, you need to change this or that. I feel like maybe the most work was done with Virgin Media, leading to that moment. And then Screen Island helped us with the money, which was the big part for us to do that. Yeah. And
you said there was changes before you went into this. So you developed it with the script editor for Virgin Media, and it had maybe a more negative end in the original draft. Is that?
It had more positive end than the original draft.
Okay, so this version has a more positive end.
Yeah, it has a positive end. Initially, I wanted to end it with no hope of unity, but I was like, come on, with everything going on, like there needs to be a seed, like an olive branch extended, and there needs to be, I feel like the intention of art in some way should be to inform and to enlighten as much as create an avenue for like hope. So even the song we used in the film is a song that I've always, like, anytime I feel down, I play that song. It's by an amazing British Nigerian musician called Asha. And we wanted to use her song for the film just to kind of like wrap everything in because of the lyrics of what it's saying. It's like what Timmy hopes, at the end of the film.
I find that so interesting that you changed tact on that. Just as a kind of creator to go, people will see it like you want the aim of it to be to build bridges rather than reflect your like negative perception of society, which is awful. Like, and that level of generational racism and how deeply ingrained it is, and even in like that older generation, how sometimes in certain facets of it, it's almost acceptable to say, like, and not like, it's just, I find that interesting. Did you like, what was it that shifted? It was more reading about things on the news, and I mean, but like I mean, part of me as a writer would go, oh, I'm so angry at that about what Dennis is documenting. I'm so
Yeah.
furious. Like I want to
Mm.
reflect that rage, but like
Yeah.
what was it? I just find that really is an interesting change.
Absolutely. For me, it felt like at first it was more like the mom's story.
Yeah.
And so when I decided it was going to be Timmy's story, I let it kind of like lead the way and say, okay, how should this child kind of like what do I want him to have going forward? And then I let the adults settle there, whatever has been there. Because we have, say like in our family, we have like these things where all the dads and the aunties and the uncles are having their beefs or whatever it is. But like the cousins, we want to kind of say, okay, look, that's our parents. This is our, we're siblings, we're brothers and sisters, no matter what. But sometimes you still get, the sins of the fathers, wanting yeah. So I wanted to create something that, since we're looking at it through the lens of this young child, to keep it, more like layer it all out and then kind of like roll back in with an olive branch of hope and, to claim back his heritage. I think is important. Yeah.
Fabulous. And just out of interest, before it went, did any of the development with Virgin Media, was it different again, or were they kind of more teasing out what was already there? Because it was more so you submitted an idea, it wasn't a script at that stage.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
Sorry, it's more like as you were submitting, so you submitted like maybe it was a one pager to Virgin for that particular scheme that you developed it under. Did it
Yeah.
change from that at all? Like, did you find as you dug into those themes, it started to differ,
Oh,
or was
yes.
it always that?
Yes. I remember particularly, there was things were meant to be really, really heated between the women in the story. But, yeah, again, when we decided it was going to be the story of the child, we kind of like, wrote it in, because then, you have the producers come on board, you have the scriptwriters come on board. And I don't want to be telling a story that's kind of like, so I wanted a balance from both sides. So I was like, okay, look, there's no good or bad. There's no nice in this story. As much as we try to do, the only person is going to be with Timmy. Everyone is at fault. The mom is doing what she knows how. She's doing what she believes is best. The grandma believes she's doing what is best, but two wrongs don't make a right. And in each other's eyes, they're doing the right thing. So
The grandma's
yeah.
a dick, though. I So, like, yeah, no, she was very wrong. Like the mom, you're like, oh, I can see your point of view, but like, no, I think she was right. Like to stay away from her, like that influence. And I know there's like the humanity and finding the humanity, but like, I think that's lovely. And like, you're on a journey as the viewer watching the story play out, and I think you hold back information so lovely and reveal it in a way that it's just like very intimate, and again following that young child, like it's just I'm so interested to how you work with him as an actor, so that's the pin right there. And
Thank you.
I'm gonna chat with you, Dennis. You were maybe didn't necessarily know when you started filming exactly how horrifically things were going to unfurl. Can you talk to me about like why you started filming, what brought you there, and God, and how you build the rapport with God, like the people in that, and like it's so beautiful to watch because there's such a lovely flow back and forth, but yet as a documentary filmmaker, you don't feel obtrusive, even though you're present, which is really lovely as a viewer to watch, because you do feel like you are watching things unfurl. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. So I work like migration is a theme I work with a lot in my films, and then also I've for a good few years I've been part of this collective where we to try to hand over the means of making films to migrants and undocumented people, and so this sort of started as it probably will ultimately, some of the footage will be part of a feature film, a second feature about migration, looking at migration policy. So I was interested in it so the context of the film is that from January to June last year in 2023, Irish government stopped providing accommodation mainly to single male asylum seekers who weren't from Ukraine, but it did also include some women, including a pregnant woman and a couple of unaccompanied minor refugees or asylum seekers. So it was like so the government argues that they ran out of accommodation. But just a couple of days after the camp was burnt down, they found accommodation. So it's what it looks like to me, and because I've worked around migration for so long, is that they were sort of testing. The Belgian government announced that they do that as well, that they wouldn't provide accommodation to single male asylum seekers who weren't from Ukraine. Last year, they announced that, but then ultimately their Supreme Court blocked it because it breaks international humanitarian law. But I think the Irish government were testing that out. So I was just going for a walk one evening, and I met Sammy, one of the three men in the film, and he was sitting at the protest at the International Protection Office, the IPO on Mount Street in Dublin. He was one of the asylum seekers who was protesting what they saw as the racist asylum policy of not providing certain asylum seekers with accommodation. So we got talking. I thought it was incredibly courageous, like that he was protesting the situation on the street. And we got talking, and I was sort of going down there a good few evenings. And then it was the May bank holiday weekend. I remember I was in the IFI that day watching Satan Tango. They put on, that's an 8.5-hour Bellatar film. And when I came out of that screening, I got a text saying that they'd set up a camp, like a residential camp, around the corner on Salmon Street. So then I went down there to just bring some food down and things like that. And that's when I met Simon. And we got talking, and I had filmed a little bit with Sammy because I was just documenting the protests. And then when I met Simon and saw the camp, I asked if I could film there as well. And so I was basically I was there for the 2 week, like I was there most days for the 2 weeks that the camp stood until it was burnt down. And I'm sort of I'm like I've worked a lot with people who find themselves at sort of the sharp edge or the bare face of European migration policy over the last while. So and my approach is usually to sort of build personal relationships first, and like I've always maintained those personal relationships. They mainly become friendships as well after, or through the work and after the work and things like that. So so I was just in the camp like a lot, sometimes with the camera, sometimes without it, and got to know Simon, Sammy, and Hasibala pretty well. And it also helped that. So I live in Sweden, like, but I have another film, a separate film I'm making in Ireland. So, and I'm back a lot. I'm over and back quite a lot. But both Sammy and Hasibala had applied for asylum in Sweden. Hasibala was there for 8 years. Like, he says it in the film, and so we could speak in Swedish. And there's something nice about that. Like, it's such a weird context, especially I suppose for both of us to be in Dublin speaking Swedish on the street. So I think that helped us get closer. And then Simon is just such a charismatic guy. He's just a real funny guy, and we just got on really well and stuff. And he's sort of interested in filmmaking and stuff like that. So he was directing scenes as much as I was, like doing the tour of the camp. He was like, "Oh, come on, let's do, like, I'll show you around. We'll do like a tour of the hood or whatever." So that was really nice. And Sammy had also been in Sweden a good few years ago, and had actually got a sort of protection. He didn't like technically get asylum, but he had like political protection in Sweden. But then Sweden applied to join NATO, and part of that application was that they said to Turkey that they would deport Kurds who had been given protection in Sweden. So there's all of it is like people who get caught up as sort of geopolitical pawns in these sort of horrible games, and then the far right come in, and and are so like I find it's the fact the fact that Sammy speaks so much more sense and is so much more well schooled in Irish Republican history and Irish history that he has to sort of like discuss things with people like Philip Dwyer, one of the main far right activist agitators. It's just so absurd. Like Sammy was um, in a communist party in Kurdistan, Turkish Kurdistan, years ago, and spent 120 days on hunger strike, and is actually a serious political actor.
Tell me about your feature that you're working on. That's in line with this, is it?
Yeah, so like I'm looking at it's sort of the like that since 2016 or 2014, 2016, there's like shift in EU migration policy, which aims to stop migration at source and deter people from coming. So, and we have this sort of situation now, and it was documented brilliantly by Sally Hayden in her book My Fourth Time We Drowned, that the Mediterranean migration route has become the most deadly in the world. So we have this we've mass death at European borders, which coexists comfortably with freedom of movement for most people within the border. And so the film is going to look at how do you operate that system? How do you operate mass death beside freedom of movement?
Well, I'm going to move on, but if we can help in any way, keep in touch with us. If you need anything shared, or like if you've any developments, do keep in touch with us. Anyway, sorry, totally off topic. I'm just like riled up now. So, but it's so powerful, and it's so well put together as a piece of film as well. I'm going to dig in more again, Dennis, to your process a little bit later. Jess, like yours is so gorgeous. There's so much it's such a strong visual story. I'm very curious to like what this looked like as a pitch for Frameworks, what this looked like as a script, because like I'm picturing it's like squiggle like a mass as a circle, like, and I'm like, how do you describe this in script form? Like,
yeah, no, thanks so much. So yeah, it was an interesting process anyway. Like it was written by Hugh O'Connor, and he comes from a predominantly live action background. But I met him at the Galway Film Festival back in 2018. And he just completed work on a short film, like an animated special, kind of like 30-minute feature, or kind of short feature. And yeah, one of those in between ones with the guys, and it was beautiful. It won a bunch of awards, and but my film was up there at the same time, so he got in touch anyway and said like, here, I'd love to make an animated short that's like a short because I think the 30-minute one it was like maybe a 6-year process or something like that. So we were so he teamed up anyway. He sent me the script, and like it was predominantly like there was very little dialogue in the whole short anyway, so it was like really descriptive. He built this like entire world, and this kind of dystopian, not so distant future world where everyone's thoughts are on display. And it just, yeah, that's, to me, like I could instantly kind of start visualizing how we could play that out in animation. I think as well, like we wanted it to be like, I work in animation for children's television mostly. So this is like a real outlet to kind of step away from that and do something much more kind of, I don't know, darker, I guess, and have a lot more fun with the design. It didn't have to be kind of sweet and very like and appeasing. We could be as weird as we wanted. And I really loved Hugh's writing. I think the one thing was that he had maybe like a 7-page script, but because there was no dialogue, we like at one point the animatic was like, God, 20-30 minutes, and that was what we were trying to avoid, just because you could keep building and building and building, and you wanted to add things into it. But so yeah, we had about 4 or 5 different iterations of the script into like an animatic. I think I storyboarded too many versions. So yeah, it was really cool pre-production process that was quite different for me anyway.
Fabulous. And when you're designing the world, so he just comes to you with words on paper and you help design how those visuals will manifest. Do you get down with the pen and paper yourself? Do you get storyboard artists in at an early stage? And is this before you submit for the framework scheme or during the process of that?
Oh yeah, so like especially with short films, like as a director, I like being, and coming from an animation background, I like being the one to do the storyboarding. Especially like because it's a short film. If it was like TV production, I think there's like storyboard artists who are like world class that you can just call on. So for this, I really wanted to be like really kind of in and hands on with the project. So yes, Hugh came with the script. I started kind of storyboarding and coming up with an animation style. I started with the characters, and it focuses on basically a boy and a girl in this kind of dystopian world, and I just kept kind of redrawing the same one or two that just kept coming back to and coming back to. So they became our protagonists, and the style was kind of set that way. Going for the frameworks pitch, I'd done a frameworks film before back in 2018. So I was kind of familiar with the process that way. And the producer on the short, who I've worked with a couple of times, Shauna Cullen, we've worked together with the production company we're with as well, Jam Media. And so we were quite familiar. So we were like that kind of made the process quite easier. So we'd have the script, you'd have storyboards, you went with character designs. You would kind of try some like world building designs as well, and you basically just have to lay it all out. And similar to how you would probably pitch a live action film where you get reference images and so on, be like, this is what we're going to go for. You just do the same. It's just like a bit more drawing.
Fabulous. And would they develop the script, or would they be like at the frameworks level, or would anything have changed at that? And are Screen Ireland and RTE, are you dealing with both? Or is there one person assigned maybe from either?
Basically, when you're pitching, there's 4 people. So they have 2 or 3 representatives from Screen Ireland and then a representative from RTE. And they've been very good. Like I think like Derek was saying like as well, like not very like when people come in and they're not very hands-on. Like I would have thought that they would have been quite kind of like strict with when you submit. We ended up I got pulled onto a different production in my like day job, and so that we ended up being delayed by a couple of months. So they allowed us to then submit for the FLA almost a year later. So we had a bit more time then to work on the film, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so, like I'd say, it's so labor intensive as well, and like that, it's not like you have your one shoot and then you're done. It's like you're constantly tweaking and tweaking and tweaking.
Yeah.
Did anything kind of get cut out that you were like, oh, that's too big or that's too much, or we would have done something a different way and in the development process?
Like the whole thing. We did that. Like we developed it. We developed probably 5 different short films. I think the very first one was hugely long, and we got to a point in the animatic where we're like, this isn't like we're meant to be doing a 6-minute short, 6-7-minute short. But to fit the entire, there was so many different arcs and different character things coming in, and I think you could have spent about 6 minutes explaining the world almost to the audience and kind of introducing them to this space. So I kind of regret a little bit that we kind of rushed through maybe some bits that I would have preferred to spend more time on. But yeah, God, we had our main character had like a terrible home life at one point where she's going into work, this terrible place, there's like class divide, going home, terrible home life, finding a romance. There's 3 or 4 kind of moments before they decide to just pick up sticks and leave, and we had to chop almost all of them basically, and trying to condense it down into something that still read quite clearly and didn't confuse people too much, just with the scale of the story. But I think we got there. There's still, even though we finished it up in June, I'm still kind of going back in my head like, I wish we could have added this or changed this or built this in, or a little bit more time. You always want more time, I think.
And what's the process like in terms of workflow? So do you do you do a good chunk of the work and then have like artists that you work with that you go, okay, you do this section? Like, do they do frames? Do they do a character? Like, how does it work in animation? How do you divvy up the jobs?
Yeah, it's so different because I love hearing like from the other filmmakers here, like their production process, because it's such a different experience in animation. We're like these kind of people just hold ourselves away for a few years and you don't see or hear from us for a while. But yeah, so what we would do, we started off with our like say script development, get the animatic going. And your animatic is basically once that's locked, that is what you draw and you animate to. So I don't know whether in live action for a short film you would do kind of a rough pass of your edit before you go out and shoot so you can kind of time things out, or if it's just you shoot and then you edit after. So we do like a full pass basically of all your storyboards and everything that's in frame. That is what will be on screen at the end of it in some sense or form. You might like tweak a little bit. But from there, you kind of start developing. We had a bit of time, thanks to Screen Ireland, to develop the visual style a bit further. And we spent a good bit of time trying to lock that animatic down. That was the most important part. So that's why we had so many iterations. And once you get that animatic locked, you kind of in tandem, you'll get your backgrounds designed. You'll do your character designs, get them. We did a hand-drawn animation using Photoshop, which was another after a while we kind of questioned why we did hand drawn. Normally like to speed up the process, you can like rig characters in certain programs and it really helps. You get a lot of kind of help from the computer in that sense, while this was all just hand drawn by the animators themselves. We had a team of maybe like 6 animators at first getting the full kind of pass, and then we brought in a couple of extras to get us over the line. And then at the same time we had people designing all the backgrounds, people doing compositing and special effects, blending it all together. So we had a team, I think over the whole 2-year production, we had maybe 30-ish people, I think, on and off, never at once. It was always in kind of ebbs and flows, but I generally was like diving in where kind of needed. But thanks to, I really needed Sean, our producer at times, to be like, you're directing, get out of there, stop animating, stop drawing, like instead be more kind of hands-on across all departments. So that was a bit of a learning curve for me. I'm not great at that.
And Jess, talk about like an A-list cast. Like, oh my God.
That was the flukiest thing.
About like Hugh calling on his mates over in Hollywood.
Oh, here basically that was, we were like, hey Hugh, like you are, he knows, he's such a great sport as well, and he's also so experienced in all areas of film. Like he's a writer, a director, an actor extraordinaire, photographer, so we were hoping that he would do, because there's only a couple of lines, like, and we wanted it to be very kind of soft and subtle, but an up and comer.
What's so
now? He's like, oh, I could ask Donald, and it was so nice that it was so great of him to ask him, but also like just to get the support. Like poor Donald was like, do you need me for this? Like, are you sure? Like he was, it's like it's only a couple of lines, and he was in the middle, I think, of a big move for a different production. So it was just really, really kind of him to jump on. And then we had Florence Adabambo as well, she was lovely. She was away, I think, studying over, I think she was in Germany at the time. So it was very much it was just a lovely kind of support system from them. They came on board. They liked the film, firstly, because I think if you spend a year trying to build a film up, you're like, I don't even know if this is good anymore. So the fact that they came on, we're like, okay, cool, got that signed off. At least it's not terrible if they're agreeing to be part of it. So that was really nice of them, and they were brilliant as well. They added so much.
Oh, fabulous! No, really, really wonderful. Actually, speaking of actors, I'm gonna go to you, Tania, again, because you were writer, actor, every role going on the production, and you were saying you were working with Johnny and getting your performance there. I'm just wondering, like, how did you balance that on the shoot? Like, that was supposed to be and funded for a very, very short shoot. How did you wrangle it all?
It's a repressed memory, I think.
It's whole birth. You forget about it afterwards, and then you go, "Oh, it's amazing!" All the endorphins of getting into festivals.
I end up writing and directing because as an actor, I hated the fact that I had to rely on other people. Other people had to give you the okay to work, and I'm really impatient, and I just like working and I like being busy, and I hate when I'm not. So I just start writing roles for myself, that things that I thought might suit me and things that I thought might be kind of what I'd like to portray. And I think with that, as I was writing it, I was kind of you're figuring out the character. So you're kind of figuring out emotional beats as you're writing them. So they're all there anyway. And just research, just watching documentaries and watching like research and watching kind of films that were similar. That's kind of, it wasn't like a crazy, I think when you're writing it, you're doing the prep anyway.
I think if you're producing it and like trying to get into the head of being like, being in the moment, I can imagine those two things, because there's nothing you're more than if you're like doing the production stuff where you're going, oh my God,
and I was like living in
their lunch is at 3, come on,
I was like living in France as well when I was trying to produce things. Everything it was a mind F.
Like, it does not come across, but I'm just wondering, how do you do that and then deliver something that deep? Like, how?
I just think I have a lot of anguish inside me. Gemma just wants to get out. I think that's what it is. It as I said, it's just prep. It's all about prep, like, but also when you're there in the moment, letting that prep go. And just having I had Johnny Johnny was there for a lot of it, and he'd be looking in the monitor, and he'd be kind of doing usually what a director would do, is be going like, oh, you're a little bit too much there, or you're not enough there, like, and just little subtle things like that. It's all about just having the support around you, and prep and just knowing your character inside out, knowing where she is. And I kind of, because I got the shooting schedule, and I was like knowing which scene I'm marking it off, and knowing, right, this is the emotion, this is where she is now, this is what I need to portray right here, pinpointing it, and just kind of little techniques that I have to get into that. But I mean, I was very stressed at that time anyway, so I was kind of in that mindset.
Love that. So you're channeling your frustration and exhaustion into, I mean, it is true. Yeah. Like, it is, like, it's almost method in a way. You are living it.
Yeah, and I was just like, as I said, I was living in France. I was just home from I was being on like a writer's residency over in France for a couple of months, and I was just absolutely exhausted anyway getting on set, and I think that helped a lot.
And what was the kind of like it 2 days shoot, like so many pages to get through? Was there any time you were like, what have I done? Obviously the result is fabulous, or could you start to see it come to fruition as you were shooting?
No, like I was just like, this is not going to work. This, like, by the end of it, I was just like, this, I don't think we got what we needed. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to be coherent. But I just got, then, we had to actually, then me and Colm had to go and do 1 or 2 pickups after then. And then I got a great editor, John Desai, and we set in and we just reworked all the stuff. And then I got James Latimer on to do sound, and he did great stuff with the sound design it just all came together because of the team I had around me.
Wow. Okay. Well, that is very impressive. And again, with that, and you were saying that, like, it's having the supports there and having that talent behind you. And do you think it is because, you've been in the industry in different roles and in performance around, that you had that network going in?
Yeah, it is. It's just, it's kind of as well when you have a vision and it's not it's kind of going a different way than you expected. Now it's letting that go as well. It's like, right, okay, I actually it was actually going to be a lot more gruesome than
it's so tense. Like, when you're watching it, if it was, I think I would have like been like, I would have been like, I can't, because I was so tense watching it, because you are like, and you're like, oh, it's like the reality, but it's like that when there's a baby, when there's a puppy, like, you just you're like, oh my God, I can't.
And I think it worked out best because I tend to like, the films I watch as well, they're all very heavy, and I tend to like stuff that goes right for the gut. the jugular. And I think that the little bits that we didn't get, that we couldn't do, because of time, because of money, because of loads of different constraints, kind of, it worked out. It worked out in the end, but I didn't think at the time it was going to. I was like, this is a mess. I can't show this to anybody. This is going to be terrible.
But there's an experimental nature to it as well.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
Like things are going to be different. Like it's not that kind of clear, cut and dry. You're looking for this thing. It's almost like finding it. But you definitely found it. And you were saying like a lot of that had to do with the sound design, which I find very interesting. Are you in the room for like the majority of that, or is that, yeah?
Yeah, like for I'm a bit of a control freak. So I have to be in the room for everything. And, James and John, the two of them were like, I was like, no, I want this, or I want this needs to be tweaked. And sometimes I can get like, my vernacular around certain things is not very clear. But they were just so amazing to work with. They really understood what I wanted, and anything like if I'd say, oh no, let's put this here or do this or do that, and they'd be like, yeah, got you, and would just do it. And it's so wonderful to work with people like that.
And would you trust your own creative instincts a lot more now, going like you pulled that out of, like, like you kind of created that out of such little amount of clay. You created something very structurally sound, very polished, very high end, like that. Yes. Like if you got a high budget, you'd be dangerous. That's what I'm saying.
Do you know what? That's really true, because we all, like, imposter syndrome is such a huge thing, and I'm sure everyone on this panel like feels it all the time, and I'm terrible for it. Like, I'm so terrible for it. And then after this, I was like, oh, okay, I think maybe I should listen to myself a little bit more and trust myself a little bit more. But the next time I could get it so wrong. It's all a learner. We're constantly learning. It's a huge learning process. The top filmmakers get things wrong sometimes. So I think it's all like, it's all just trying. It's just trial and error. I don't know. The next thing I do could be completely incoherent. I hope not, but I think trusting ourselves is a huge thing, especially when you're starting off. But yeah, I think I'm going to trust myself a little bit more, and that could be a bad thing too.
That's it. Like you've sort of delivered on, and really, like, I kind of think it's not easy to touch on things that are that dark and give them the justice they, like, like you kind of owe subject matter like a certain level of something. I don't know what that is, but like, like a certain level of space. And I think this has created that and brought it down to that in a very like authentic and challenging way, and like it does it so well. So that's why when you were telling me about the resources, I was sort of floored by that. Derek, yes. So the performances, oh my God, the chemistry, and again, you just find this talent and nurture it in such a way. I really want to know about, and you do this in all your films. Like in all your films, you create something that's true. I'm just curious to how you get to that, or how do you find your cast? How do you work with them?
For Pediment, we were very fortunate to have a casting director. This is the first time I've worked with a casting director, because we normally don't have the budget for it. So we had Barry Coyle at LKC to help us find the actors. I already knew Nancy, but I never had met Mary Mullen. I knew of her work, and I never had known Timmy Lucien. This was his first gig, so we spent time to look for the child, the protagonist, and we looked through many actors. Now there are not many mixed race young actors of that age. But one of the things that stood out was we had to have them send in tapes of them singing. And so we got very cute, like Mary Has a Little Lamb kind of thing. And Lucian's one came in and he was singing Old Time Road by Little Naze. Is it Little Naze or Little Nas? Old Time Road to the country that I'm gonna write no more. And he sang the whole verse and I was like, oh my God, that's Timmy. So, and then we brought him in, and, he had this he's really the character. He's so precocious. He's very smart. His both parents were there as well. His parents were so lovely, very supportive. I mean, he was even helping us sometimes with continuity issues. Like, the dude was like really, really a star. And yeah, so that was how we got it working.
And he really, again, like there's such emotional depths and there's such a level of charm that he presents on screen. What's
Yeah.
your process in working with him? Do you workshop with him ahead of time? Do you have conversations? How do you get him to be so in the moment?
Oh, so I wait for him to get tired. But no, we had a rehearsal with Nancy, who's going to play his mom. We met up in we were able to rent the studio, the lab studio, and then we had like just a few hours of them getting to know each other, getting to get more comfortable with one another, just reading the script, and then on the day, we just give him a lot of sugar, let him exercise himself, and then, but like, it was very good working with him because I would just kind of like explain the story to him and tell him what his intentions are. And I talk to him like I'll talk to any other actor on set. And, I feel like the more I did that, and I bring him behind the scene as well to watch the monitor. So he sees his performance and he sees himself. And that just makes him even want to go ahead and do it more and more. And so, yeah, I think that was one of it because I've never worked with a child actor before. That was my first time working with a very young actor. So I felt like it was, and I got advice. Like I contacted mentors and asked them. Mia Mulaki was one of the most helpful ones as well because she's just done, what's the name of this short now? Anyways, I can't remember. She did a Screen Island short last year and she worked with
Safest Houses.
Safest Houses, yes. And Mia was just, because she gave me a lot of advice and she's already was a child psychologist at some point. So she knows all the ins and outs and and I applied all the notes and I just made Lucien feel part of the team. We gave him enough rest when he needed and just brought him along as much as possible and made him to feel like he has an opinion as well. So we're not just telling him, oh, stand here or do this. Sometimes he'd be like, oh, can I try this? Sure, why not? Go for it. And, he loved that. And it was an eye opener for me as well, because it was my first time. So I enjoyed it. I really did.
Brilliant. That's fabulous. And Dennis, then I also, before we go, because I'm so aware of time, I would love to know what it was like editing that, because in a way, like watching it, it was quite harrowing, and knowing the people involved. And I think like, God, your subjects are so kind of charming and fun and knowledgeable. But then you see sometimes, the kind of that slip and the hurt that's behind it all. And I would say editing, and there's an optimism to the beginning of this that's really like cut through. I mean, like it's not a spoiler. It's literally the title of the film, so I can say. But like, I'm just curious to what was your edit process like for this? Because what I think is beautiful, you give time, like you give us time with our subjects. You feel like you're with them really in this very personal way, and I can kind of hear a voice, and I'm just wondering how you find that yourself as a filmmaker.
Like the process, the edit. So usually when I shoot stuff, because I usually work. I made my first feature, which I released last year. Took 8 years to make, so it was like, I mean, it was a temporal piece. It took place over 7 years. So I used to shoot footage and then sort of step away from it for like 6 months and then come back to it fresh. But this was like the complete opposite, where I'd like shoot stuff and then sort of go home that night or the next day and just be working with it, because it felt like things were getting so steadily worse every day, sort of thing, and the threat was rising that it felt I needed to work with it a bit, like right away. And so I sort of like, I had just sequences basically. And then like just 2 days after when the camp was burnt down and after the confrontation between the left-wing activists defending the camp and the far right attacking it, like that was the worst political experience in my life. And one of the most intense filmmaking experiences. I had to like we were sort of surrounded by the far right, and when people started shouting "smash his camera," I had to like stop filming and take the card out and take one. I had 2 cards in, so to take one card out and hide that on my person because I sort of expected the camera to be smashed and stuff, but thankfully it wasn't. But so it was such an intense experience and fairly traumatic experience that like working with the footage, there was something a little bit reassuring about that, just to be able to like to watch through it and experience it again. And I was sort of shaking and stuff when I was working with it first. But then after a couple of days, I had like a 40-minute cut that I shared with my really close friend, the author and activist Tom Rosengrave, who I was living with at the time. And he was there at the camp a lot and was one of the people defending it. So it was nice to get his thoughts. And it was basically just like, yeah, this works. Like, and then I started, like I knew it wouldn't be 40 minutes. So I started like cutting it down and sort of, rearranging it and like, sort of weighting it more that we get to know Simon, Sammy, and Hasibala in the camp, and the sort of the like you said, the positivity of the camp first. That they had a workshop, they were painting, they were making protest banners, they were reading. Someone was giving language classes, Oscuelga, and in English. Like you could see that in the camp. So it was to sort of build that first, and then introduce the far right and their destruction. And I'm really lucky, like in Stockholm, I have a really close community of documentary filmmakers who I trust very much. So like one of my producers, Elizabeth Marianovich was she was like quite involved in the process after sort of in the autumn, after I left it for a few months to sort of just process it a bit more, and then we went back and did a sort of another few passes, like went in quite a lot, and brought it to where it sort of ended up. Yeah,
because you like it's like in a way it's very sort of restrained, because like, I mean, you could have it this very heightened thing, but I don't know, I think it's just the pacing of it was very distinct, and it was really wonderful to watch. Did anything sort of change? Like, did you find did your objective change at any point as you were making the film, or did you go like, look, I'd love to get coverage of this and go back and shoot it, but I can't? Or were you like, no, this is always the story that I had decided to tell, and I'm just trying to figure out the best sort of punctuation to tell that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the start to me it felt quite simple, and I think it is a really simple, like that's why we went with the title "The Building and Burning of Refugee Camp," because it is basically that simple. Like there's a positive, constructive like gesture of building a camp, and also like they were called like that, building that camp, they were calling for housing of all homeless people, asylum seekers, or people who were already in the country or from Ireland. And also like there was like, it's not in the final film, but there was a homeless man from Dublin living right beside the camp, who they were really good friends with and got on really well, and he managed to talk down some people who were coming to like attack the camp a few times. They listened to him because he was a white Irish guy, but he was like very much on the side of the asylum seekers. But so yeah, no, it was always just like there's the positive constructive gesture, and there's the negative destructive gesture, and then it was just like the weighting and pacing of introducing allowing us in to the camp. Because I suppose maybe if people aren't involved in activism, or who just don't know, maybe people who go through the asylum system, maybe like they wouldn't go into the camp or something. I don't know, they might just walk by. Not that many people would go into maybe like a camp for homeless people, no matter what. So it felt like I've always been, because when you work with this stuff, like you realize how welcoming those spaces are, and so it was sort of like to try to demonstrate the welcome and the positivity despite the incredibly difficult circumstances. And then to put that alongside the destructive drive of the far right.
Well, one of the things I love actually about everybody's film on this panel is the depth of the themes, and how there's different perspectives, completely different perspectives, but just tackling something that's very kind of poignant for everybody. Like each single film does that in a different way, about like connection in an animation, and the cost of modern society and burnout, and then you know, like intergenerational trauma and like the plight of being a woman and racism in Ireland and this destruction of like it's just a beautiful watch.
I just want to say that I really, really enjoyed everyone's films. Like it's like if I start talking about each and everyone's, like Gemma would be like, "Shut up."
I'm the same. Just congratulations on everyone's work. There's so much humanity in them, and they really struck a chord with me. And thanks for that. Thanks for making them.
Hey guys.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
I feel the same. Fair play to you as well. It'd be nice to all meet, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope to get to see us
Never
at
met
this because, yeah, it'd be nice.
That'd be really cool. Some of those familiar faces as well.
Yeah.
Cross your eyes. That'd be really cool.
And when can we see your films? When is your screening? If we go through it, Derek.
Mine is screening on the 24th of February at 2 p.m. at Lighthouse Cinema.
Dennis?
Mine is on the 27th, Tuesday the 27th of February at 6:30.
And that will be screening in the Circular Bar in Royalto. Jess?
Jess had her information up and had lost it. But I'm pretty sure I am also on the 24th of February. Warrior World is screening in Lighthouse on the 24th.
Fabulous. And Tania?
I'm on the Thursday the 29th in the Lighthouse at 4 p.m.
Fabulous. Well, I could not recommend them more highly. Anyone who's getting their tickets now for DIFF, you're in for a treat. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gemma.
Thanks, Gemma.
Thank you.
You can explore the Dublin International Film Festival programme and buy tickets now at diff.ie.